center of this empire, first there was fire, Zoroastrianism, or as the Arabs called it, Majus. Then these lands met Islam, but today Iran is known as the center of Shiaism. Yet very few people know this. These lands were once the heart of Sunni Islam. So what happened that everything changed? How did an empire collapse? In this video, you will learn about Iran's struggles with Arabs and Turks and how the Sunni Shia division began. These videos, subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments which country you are watching from. If you are ready, let's begin. Around 1500 to 1000 BC, in the empty steppes of Central Asia or Eastern Iran, a prophet appeared. His name was Zoroaster. It is not enough to call him just a reformer. Zoroaster was one of the first people in history to clearly present the idea of one God and a moral universe. Some Islamic scholars discussed whether Zoroaster could be the same as Dhul-Qarnayn mentioned in the Quran, or another prophet. There is no clear conclusion, but this possibility shows his importance also from an Islamic point of view. The religion founded by Zoroaster, Zoroastrianism, described the universe as an eternal struggle between two great forces, Ahura Mazda, the god of light and goodness, and Ahriman, the spirit of darkness and evil. A human being, free to choose between good and evil, will face a great day of judgment in the future. This idea of the afterlife is striking. The souls of the dead will pass over the bridge of judgment, which causes fear and anxiety in everyone. After the judgment of God, good souls will be sent to a land of endless light and happiness, while bad souls will be sent to a land of darkness and fear. With the coming of Islam, Muslim scholars discussed how Zoroastrians should be treated. During the time of Umar, it was decided that Zoroastrians were not treated like idol worshippers, but placed in a position similar to al-Kitab. They were allowed to practice their religion in return for paying jizya. Before Christ, in 550 BC, the Zoroastrians established their first great empire, the Achaemenids. This became one of the largest political powers the world had ever seen, ruling across 3 continents. Later, in 224 AD, a great dynasty appeared that would reshape the fate of Iran, the Sassanids. This state, which ruled Iran before Islam, was not only a political power, it also represented a religious system. The king was not an ordinary person. He was the representative of divine order on earth. This meant that obeying the king was not only political, but also a religious duty. In other words, belief and power were completely connected. But inside every strong system, there is a crack. And in Iran, this crack was slowly growing. Society was divided into layers. In Zoroastrianism, some jobs were considered impure, especially craftsmen and producers, because it was believed that they polluted fire. These people were looked down upon in society. Think about it. If working and producing pushes you down in a society, what does that create? Anger, a silent sadness, and a tension that will one day explode. These people, the ones pushed outside of society, would be the first to open the door when Islam came. But that day had not yet arrived. By the 7th century, the Sasanian Empire was one of the most powerful states in the world and was at its peak. The Persian armies had defeated the Eastern Roman Empire again and again. They had taken Damascus, Jerusalem, and Egypt. Rome looked like it had collapsed. The empire was on the edge of falling apart. At that time, the message of Islam had begun to be heard in Mecca through Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The disbelievers were putting strong pressure on the Muslims. The continuous victories of the Persians made the Meccan disbelievers very happy because they supported the Persians. The Persians were a people who worshipped fire, and the disbelievers were idol worshippers. The Muslims, however, were closer to the Romans, who were al-Kitab. The disbelievers said to the Muslims, "Look, Those who are people of the book like you have been defeated. Our side has won. You will also lose, and we will win again." At that moment, a verse was revealed in the Quran. The Romans have been defeated, but after their defeat, within a few years, they will be victorious. At that time, this seemed impossible, because Rome was almost destroyed. The Meccan disbelievers mocked this verse. "How can this happen?" they said. "How can Rome win again?" But Abu Bakr did not hesitate. He believed that this verse would come true. According to narrations, he even made a bet with the disbelievers about it. He said that Rome would become victorious within a certain number of years, and years passed. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius gathered his army again. After the defeat, he withdrew. But he did not give up. Then one day, the counterattack began. The wars turned again. The balance changed. And in the end, Rome became victorious. What the Quran had said happened exactly. This was not just the result of a war. This was the confirmation of divine knowledge. And with this turning point, the Sasanian Empire entered a decline from which it could not return. The year 622 is accepted as the beginning of decline and collapse for the Sasanians. After their defeat against the Byzantine Empire, Byzantine forces advanced into western Iranian lands. After this defeat, a 14-year civil war followed, and the central authority became very weak. The Sasanian king Khosrov II tore apart the letter sent to him by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, inviting him to Islam. When the Prophet heard this, he said, "Allah will also tear his kingdom apart." This hadith later became one of the most striking prophecies in Islamic history when the events unfolded. Then a great disaster came, a plague. Hundreds of thousands of people died in the capital alone. The army became weak, the economy collapsed, the belief system was shaken, and most importantly, people were now searching for answers. At that very moment, a new power was rising in the Arabian Peninsula. No one realized it yet. But this power was not just a state, it was a message. Islam. After the death of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Muslims continued to spread Islam, especially towards Rome and towards Persia, two great empires, and in front of them, a newly formed Ummah. But one of the most surprising moments in history was about to happen, because something no one expected took place. After the campaigns of the Islamic armies against the Persian Empire, they managed to defeat this great empire. We will explain this part in detail soon, but before that, we should say this. This victory was not only military. Breaking a 1,000-year-old civilization was only possible through the message of Islam. And here is a very important truth. Even though Iran was conquered, it did not become Muslim immediately. And unlike Christianity, Islam never forced people to become Muslim. This is very important, because many people think Iran was conquered and the people immediately became Muslim, or they were forced to become Muslim. No, the reality is very different and much deeper. In the early years, most of the people of Iran remained Zoroastrian. Even the state system was largely preserved. Language, culture, traditions, all of them continued to live. So then a question appears. How did Iran become Muslim? And more importantly, how did it become a Shia country today? This story was not a simple change of religion. It happened together with political turning points, and it took centuries of transformation. Now, let us go to one of the most critical moments of this story and one of the biggest turning points in Islamic history, the days of the conquest of Iran during the time of Umar. The year 636. Under the burning sun of Mesopotamia, on the plain of Qadisiyah, two worlds stood face to face. On one side, the last remains of a 1,000-year-old empire, armored cavalry, war elephants, golden banners, and the pride of countless generals. On the other side, Muslims who had come out of the desert, far fewer in number but carrying a strange and burning light inside them. After the death of Abu Bakr, Umar ibn Khattab became the Caliph and decided to solve the Persian issue completely. From Medina, thousands of kilometers away from the battlefields of Iran, Caliph Umar launched a series of well-coordinated attacks. This became one of his greatest victories, building his reputation as a powerful military and political strategist. According to some researchers, the Muslim army had around 9,000 to 10,000 soldiers. The Sasanian army, however, was estimated to be 70,000 to 80,000 strong. They also had around 30 war elephants, which were a serious threat to the Muslims. The first day of the battle was extremely difficult for the Muslim army. When the battle began, everything was in favor of the Persians, especially the war elephants. They broke the Muslim lines at the very beginning. The horses were terrified. The formation collapsed, and at that moment, many thought the battle would be lost. But then something changed. The Muslims changed their strategy. They targeted the elephants. Their eyes were struck, their legs were cut, and these massive war machines suddenly became useless. For the first time, the Persian army was shaken, and then what was inevitable began. The Persians started to retreat. On the final day of the battle, a reinforcement force of 6,000 soldiers arrived from the Syrian front, and the balance completely shifted in favor of the Muslims. And so, Qadisiyah became one of the most critical victories in Islamic history. In this battle, both sides lost at least 1/3 of their forces. The Muslims gained a large amount of war spoils. The most valuable among them was the sacred Persian banner called Dirafsh Kaviani. After Qadisiyah, the Muslim armies moved forward, breaking every resistance in their path, heading toward the Sasanian capital, Madain. The army under the command of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas entered the city. The palaces were not destroyed. In fact, they were magnificent, but they were empty. The Sasanian king Yazdegerd III had fled, taking his treasures with him. When Sa'd saw the throne hall of Kisra for the first time, he recited a verse from the Quran. This happened only 4 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Muslims were now praying inside the throne hall of the most powerful empire in the world. Finally, in the year 642, the last great resistance took place in Nihavand, near present-day Hamadan. Islamic sources called this battle the Victory of Victories. The Muslims won the battle, and the Sasanian army was completely destroyed. The last Sasanian king, Yazdegerd III, was eventually killed in an assassination in Merv in 651. And with that, the 1,000-year-old Sasanian dynasty came to an end. Salman al-Farisi was one of the most remarkable figures in Islamic history. He was originally from a well-known Zoroastrian family near Isfahan. While searching for the truth, he spent years among Christians, following religious scholars. In the end, he reached the Prophet and found his freedom. The Prophet loved him so much that he said, "Salman is one of us, from Al-Bayt." And now that same Salman was appointed as the governor of Madain by Umar. The war in Iran, unlike many wars carried out by Western powers, was not a colonial war. It was not a war of destruction. When the Islamic armies arrived, they offered only 2 choices: to accept Islam freely, or, if they did not want to remain in their own religion and pay jizya. There was no forced conversion. This is a very clear historical fact. But this was only the beginning, because this was not just a military victory. This was a turning point in history. And now, Iran was under the control of Islam. The Muslims ruled it with justice. The first people in Iran to accept Islam were usually from the lower levels of society. Craftsmen, the excluded ones. For them, Islam was freedom. Over time, Islam was explained. It spread slowly, and after about 200 to 300 years, the majority of the people of Iran became Muslim. But here is a critical question. Which Islam did they accept? Because today, when we look at Iran, it is not Sunni, it is Shia. So how did this happen? The answer lies in one of the most difficult periods in Islamic history, the martyrdom of Uthman, the caliphate of Ali, and the conflict that began with Muawiya. That was the turning point. It would shape not only the Arab world, but also the destiny of Iran. When Caliph Umar was martyred in 644 by the dagger of a Persian slave, the legacy he left behind was both massive and fragile. The council he established made a choice between Ali and Uthman for the caliphate. After long discussions, Uthman ibn Affan was chosen as caliph. The first 6 years of Uthman's rule were strong. The Quran was gathered into a single mushaf and sent to the entire ummah. This became one of Uthman's greatest services to Islam. But in the second 6 years, things changed. Uthman appointed some companions to govern important regions like Egypt, Kufa, and Basra, and some of them were his relatives. These appointments caused serious dissatisfaction, especially in those cities. One of the most debated figures in Sunni history appeared during this time of fitna, Abdullah ibn Saba. According to Sunni sources, he was a Jewish man from Yemen who outwardly showed Islam but secretly spread corruption. He strongly promoted the idea that Ali had the right to the caliphate. First, he spread accusations that Uthman was giving important positions to his relatives unfairly. Over time, these claims turned into rebellion, and this rebellion reached Medina. It was the year 656. Uthman was surrounded, but pay attention to this. The companions tried their best to protect him. Even Ali sent his own sons, Hassan and Hussein, to defend him. But the crowd was large, and in the end, the doors were broken. A caliph reading the Quran was martyred in his own home. This was not just a murder. This was the opening of fitna in the Islamic world. We explain these events in detail because they would also affect Iran. Here, one important point should be noticed, the mawqif, stance, of Ali. If Ali believed that Uthman was wrong, he would not send his sons to protect him. Instead, he would have wanted him to be judged. So, if he had believed the accusations of Abdullah ibn Saba, he would not act in such a way. This also shows that those who later claimed to support Ali, the Shia, actually place him in doubt because of this stance. But many do not think deeply about this or choose to ignore it. Yes, Uthman was martyred. The Quran was open, and his blood fell onto its pages. Then Ali ibn Abi Talib was given bay'ah as the fourth caliph of Islam. Ali was the cousin of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his son-in-law, and one of the first Muslims. In knowledge, courage, and justice, he was among the greatest of the companions. But his caliphate did not begin peacefully, because there was a major problem. The killers of Uthman had not been punished. Many companions were saying, first, these killers must be punished. But Ali was in a very difficult situation, because some of the rebels were still in Medina, some were even within groups that supported him. So if he punished them immediately, a new civil war would begin. For this reason, Ali chose patience and tried to calm the situation, but not everyone agreed. Aisha, Talha, Zubair. These three major figures believed that Uthman's killers must be punished, and this disagreement turned into the first major conflict, the Battle of the Camel, Muslim against Muslim. This was something very heavy for the Ummah. In the end, Ali won the battle, but this victory left a wound, because now it was clear, unity was gone. The governor of Sham, Muawiya ibn Abi Sufyan, was about to step onto the stage. He was a relative of Uthman, and he was a very powerful leader. He said the same thing, I will not give bay'ah until the killers are punished. But this was not just a demand. This was a political challenge, and the two sides faced each other. The year, 657. The place, Siffin, Two great Muslim armies stood against each other. This battle was one of the heaviest moments in Islamic history because there was no enemy here. Both sides were Muslim. The battle lasted for days, and in the end, Muawiya's army was in a difficult position. At that moment, a move was made. Pages of the Quran were raised on the tips of spears. The message was clear: let the Quran judge between us. This created great confusion in Ali's army. Some wanted to continue fighting, some wanted to stop, and the result, the arbitration. But this arbitration did not solve the problem. Instead, it made it even bigger. A group from Ali's army rejected the arbitration. They said, judgment belongs only to Allah, and they separated. This group became known as the Kharijites. Now the Islamic world was not divided into two, but into three. And then one of the most painful moments came. A Kharijiti carried out an assassination against Ali, and Ali was martyred. This moment was not just the death of a leader, it was the breaking of the heart of the Islamic world. And right here, two different perspectives became clear. The Sunni view: leadership is chosen by the Ummah. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali are the rightful caliphs. The Shia view: leadership belongs to the family of the Prophet. Ali and his descendants are the true leaders. One of the main reasons behind this division is this: in Iran, a sense of nationalism developed against the Arabs. When the Arabs became divided, this was seen as an opportunity. Ali, who did not fight against Iran during the early periods after the Prophet, was viewed with sympathy. Because of this, he was not seen as an enemy of Persian identity. Over time, Persian nationalism and love for Ali came together. This emotional connection later became part of the foundation of Shia identity. At the same time, Persian nationalism also created hostility towards some companions who had taken part in the campaigns in Iran. In this process, Abdullah ibn Saba is described in some Sunni sources as a hypocrite who used these tensions. By using both political division and emotional influence, he worked to push support for Ali into a deeper political separation within the Islamic world. And in the end, this effort contributed to a lasting division. Ali's son, Hussein, he would stand in a desert with a small group against a massive army, and this event would not be just a battle, it would become a trauma, especially for Iran. This event would change everything, because the Persian political mindset would find in this story a powerful reason to separate from Arab Islam. In 661, when Ali was martyred in Kufa while praying, struck by a poisoned sword, his son Hassan made an agreement with Muawiya. He gave up the caliphate in return for a condition. After Muawiya, leadership would be decided by consultation. Muawiya kept his word, but only while he was alive. According to historian Wilfred Madelung, Muawiya's decision to appoint his son Yazid as successor was a violation of this agreement. This was the first time in Islamic history that leadership became hereditary, and it caused strong opposition. The year 680, Muawiya died. Yazid took power and demanded bay'ah from everyone. Hussein refused and moved to Mecca. At that time, letters began to arrive from Kufa. "Come, we are waiting for you. We are ready to give you bay'ah." Hussein accepted the call of the people of Kufa and set out with his family, but the governor of Kufa, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, had already influenced many of those who wrote the letters and pressured them to withdraw their support. The same people who called Hussein, the same people who cried out that they would die for him, left him alone out of fear, just as his father had been martyred in Kufa. The son would also be martyred on the road to Kufa. On October 2nd, 680, Hussein's caravan reached the plain of Karbala near the Euphrates River. Soon after, Yazid's army surrounded them. There were only 72 people with Hussein. The opposing army was in the thousands. Hussein refused to give bay'ah, The access to water from the Euphrates was cut off. They were left without water. When Hussein set out, he had already received news that the people of Kufa had withdrawn their support. But he still chose to stand against injustice. October 10th, 680, the 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura. Yazid's army attacked. One by one, those with Hussein were martyred. His brothers, his nephews, his sons, each of them a story of sacrifice, and in the end, Hussein stood alone. Wounded by arrows and spears, he fell to the ground. There was not a single fighter left beside him. Hussein was martyred, and his head was sent to Yazid. The women and children of al-Bayt were taken captive. After Karbala, the tents were looted. The women and children were taken as prisoners. They were paraded through the streets of Kufa, then taken to Damascus. But among them was Zainab bint Ali, and she did not remain silent. In Kufa and in Damascus, her speeches in front of the crowds shook the moral legitimacy of the Umayyad rule. The event of Karbala happened in Arabia and Iraq. It had no direct geographical connection with Iran, but over time, Karbala became the center of Iran's spiritual identity. Now, I want you to look at this with a neutral perspective. The people who called Hussein, who made him set out, and who today cry the most for him, the people of Kufa, the backbone of what later became Shiism, had actually left him alone and contributed to his martyrdom. On that day, they did not stand with him at all. History continues to question the sincerity of the people of Kufa. Over time, this tragic event was turned into a powerful narrative. It was used as a tool to separate from central Islamic authority. One of the regions that could benefit most from this was Persian Iran. This region used this event for centuries to gain political and religious legitimacy, building a new structure known as Shiism under the name of loyalty to Ali. However, the Islamic world has never supported the killing of Ali or Hussein. Not a single Muslim can justify these events. The Umayyad rule and Yazid have been criticized throughout history. Islamic scholars have strong agreement regarding the dhulm, injustice, committed by Yazid. Despite this, a perception was created as if the entire Islamic world supported these events. Using these incidents as a reason, a separation from Islam was gradually built. Behind this separation, there were clearly political and national motivations. Based on these events, changing the fundamental rules and teachings of Islam, forming a different structure, or altering acts of worship, such as reducing Salah to 3 times a day, cannot be directly justified by these events.